What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, and we're here on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You can listen online, listen on your mobile device, in your car, or you can even ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 radio. To learn more and get a full schedule, go to dreamvision7radio.com and evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you on this beautiful spring day here in New England. And I can't wait to introduce my guest to you. And before we get started, I wanted to just talk a little bit about our theme for today. We're going to talk a little bit about overcoming and conquering. We're going to talk a lot about that, actually. And I love this as a theme because there's just so many ways that you can branch off and go with that. And in this day and age, I feel like we really need to be better overcomers, right? There's so much coming at us all the time. We've got to learn and we've got to start to retrain our brain and our stories to look for of course, what's good, but also to look for what's most important for us. And believe it or not, there's ways that you can retrain your brain to do that because, as you know, we're automatically programmed to look for what's not good, right? To look for the negative as a way to keep us safe. But we don't need that software anymore. We have outgrown that centuries ago, and it's time to learn to rewire our brains with the stories that we're telling on a daily basis. The ones that we don't even realize we're telling are the most important ones to uncover and discover as you do this work. And as you know, based on my book, Tell a New Story, and all the stories that we're telling ourselves and others that no longer serve us. So I love talking about that. And stories pertain to all the different topics in our life, all the different things that are so important to us. And I'm super excited to introduce my guest today, Sarah Haas. She's a woman's weight release expert and a body love coach. I just love that title. She's an integrative nutrition health coach. She's a certified personal trainer, podcast host, and a speaker. And I was on her podcast recently, so definitely go over and check that out. She's fantastic. She draws on her education and personal experience as a 50-something single mom and breast cancer survivor to guide and support midlife women to become healthy, vibrant, and unapologetically confident. Her holistic approach to creating overall health integrates nutrition, body movement, self-care, self-compassion, and body love to empower her clients to step into this sexy, authentic, joyful life they deserve. Don't you love that, everybody? Welcome, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to be able to have an awesome conversation for your community.
Wonderful. Well, I know everybody's going to love what you have to say. It's so up our alley, and you and I have had many discussions, and we could talk for a long time on these topics. And I think it's so important. I really love the way you bring everything wellness and well-being. It's not just, you hear a lot of people talk about weight loss coaches. I like the way you have phrased it, a weight release coach. Tell me why that was important to you.
Well, I believe that getting healthy has to be done in a holistic way. And when women first come to me, their first words are, I need to lose weight. That's what they think they need. And what they're really saying is, I want to be healthy. I want to feel good in my body, and I want to be able to do whatever I want to do in my life. And I work mostly with women around midlife age. So, late 40s, 50s, 60s, around those hormonal changing times. And you have not just your hormones and your body changing, but your life is changing. Maybe you have kids, they're getting older, you're
Mhm.
looking towards, retirement, whatever that is. And we're dealing with so much mentally and emotionally. And so many women that I see are trying desperately to get healthy. And they're told all these things from the dieting industry that you have to do this and that and the other. And they try it, and then it works for a while, and then it doesn't work. And then they just end up feeling guilty and ashamed and like it's their fault. And what I want to do is uplift women to realize, you know what? That's not your fault. The dieting industry is a setup for failure. They want to sell you their books and their products and their food, whatever that is. And most of the plans aren't sustainable. And so it's really cultivating that self confidence and, empowering yourself. That's what I do. That's where the body love comes in. People think that when they get to a certain size or a certain number, then they can start caring about themselves and loving themselves and having happiness and joy. And really, I want to flip that script, because you have to start it now where you are. You have to start realizing what an amazing, strong, accomplished woman you really are. And that's what sets all those positive actions in motion, because instead of beating yourself up, you're uplifting yourself. And that's what creates positive action. I saw a sign once that said, floggings will continue until morale improves. And we think if we go around beating ourselves up day after day, that's going to motivate us. That's going to keep us accountable. And really, that's not true.
It's actually the thing that holds us back, and I love teaching people that, right? Because we don't even realize that this is going on. And I love the way you brought up that sign, because it's happening so quietly inside. And until we really awaken and become aware of it, we don't even realize what some of those little stories are that we tell ourselves. And they, a lot of times, they revolve around who we are, how we look, how do we feel about ourselves, especially as women. Young girls are brought up not to embrace who we are. We're brought up to be quiet and, sit like a lady and don't ruffle any feathers, all these things that get stuck in our brains and affect us later on in life. And we're not even sure what it is that's making us feel stuck, but it's that very thing that you just discussed. And so that's why I
Yeah.
absolutely love what you're doing.
Yeah, and you talk so much about, what is that inner story? And that's exactly what I'm trying to help women uncover. We get sort of programmed from an early age from our moms who are, watching their weight and dieting, and our dads who make comments about other women's bodies, and then, classmates, teachers, bosses, people that were in romantic relationships, whatever, we get these messages. If you don't look a certain way, you're not enough. And we internalize those, and then that becomes our story, and we don't even realize it. And then we are literally repeating that story to ourselves every single day. Every day when you look in the mirror, every day when you try on clothes and you don't like how you look, every day when you're in pictures, or now that it's summer, I'm hearing so many people worried about wearing shorts and short sleeves and bathing suits. And it's just such a shame, because we're wasting so much mental energy, which sucks up time in our
Mhm.
lives when we could be out there. We already are out there killing it. But think what we as women could accomplish in this world if we weren't constantly beating ourselves down and basically keeping ourselves from being confident enough to go for what we want and put ourselves out there.
Amen. I absolutely love that. And you said, it's sucking up all this energy and this mental energy, because we spend a lot of time thinking about that. Absolutely. But it's also sucking our happiness, and it's sucking the joy right out of us, because it's like we've got our foot on the gas and the brake at the same time, but we're going nowhere, right? It's like we want to move forward, but we've got all this stuff that we're doing that we don't even realize we're doing. That's actually the brake, right? So that's why a lot of people feel like a lot of women feel like they can't move forward in their lives because of that. And, one of the things I'm sure you'll agree is that these stories came into our heads, like you just described, when we were really young. Most of our stories get imprinted in there before we're 7 years old. So we don't even really, we're not deciding, it's not like we go into our closet, we're going to wear this, we're going to pick out that, or we pick out our food. For some reason, we don't pick our thoughts like that. But that's really what we need to do. We need to start looking at, wait a second, I keep telling this story. It doesn't really matter where it came from, but it's interesting that most of them they get sticky. Our brain gets sticky with the negative, and then it's like somebody put a little sticky note in there and it just stuck.
Yeah, and it's scientific that whatever your brain keeps thinking creates those neural pathways, and your brain's always going to take the path of least resistance. It's like if you drive home from work every day and you take the same route, and sometimes you end up at home and you're like, I don't even remember driving here, or if you're intending to go to the store first and then you totally forget and you pull up in your own driveway. That's what your brain is doing. It's saving energy by going into those default pathways. And so I love what you do because you help us look in there and say, okay, what is that story? What is that basically mantra that we're repeating to ourselves over and over again that's strengthening that pathway to those negative thoughts and actions? Because if you start becoming aware of it, then you can start changing it. And if you just continue telling yourself the new story, those pathways end up being the stronger and the other ones start to fade away, and then that becomes your autopilot, your baseline way of thinking.
I love that. Your new autopilot, and I talk about it, we want to I like to geek out a little bit on the neuroscience, but, Hebb's law, is just what you're describing. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Well, what does that mean? It's kind of like, if you think of it as like, I'm going to use my musical analogy, of course, a record player, an old fashioned record player, where it would get stuck in the groove. And that's what happens to us. It gets stuck in that groove. But the cool thing is, as we know, because we grew up with record players, all you have to do is go over and just give it a little tap and it jumps off of that, right? And you're off that stuck groove. Because the other part of that is true, and I heard Dr. Joe say this one time, neurons that if they're not firing and wiring together, if they're not firing anymore, if you're not doing that behavior anymore, they're no longer wiring. And that's the cool part, right? It's like, wait a second, I have a choice. I can decide if I like this automatic program. I like the one that takes me home quickly. I like that one. But maybe I don't like the one that says, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I need to look better in my bikini, whatever. Especially at midlife when everything's changing around us. And so I love that. I just love, because most people don't know that it is changeable. And I've had a lot of clients have aha moments where they're like, I didn't even know I could change those thoughts, right?
Right. You tend to think those thoughts are you, that voice is you talking to yourself, but really it's not. It's an amalgam of all these messages that you received over the years and internalized them. And what I like to point out is that anytime you're stuck in a cycle, we have these thoughts that just keep going around and around this exact same pattern. If you changed the trajectory by doing one little thing different, then your circle starts to veer out in another direction. So it doesn't take making some humongous change all at once. It's not that hard. It can be one simple step which starts to set off a domino effect and completely takes you out of that cycle.
I love that. You're singing my song. It's finding out what those little bad habits are so you can go in and plant some little good ones in there. And I love what you said, because it's not as hard as it seems. Sometimes people become overwhelmed because they feel like there's too much they want to change. But when you focus on the tiny little minutia, those little atomic habits, if you will, then they start to stack up and and then all of a sudden you get way over here and you stop and you look back, you're like, wow, I've come a long way with that one little thing. Like you were saying to me before, you teach your clients how to walk for 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there and 5 minutes there. And that adds up to 15 minutes a day. And then that ups to, it just is a cumulative thing, and it just keeps working your momentum in the right direction.
Yeah. And if you think about it, if you only improved by 1% per week, 1%, at the end of a year, that's 52%. And
Yeah.
I love to ask people to imagine, okay, this time next year, if your health and your mindset was 52% better, how would that look and how would that change your life? Because
Right.
it would be amazing, right? We all want to improve by 50% in a year,
Yes, exactly.
and it's
It's so
totally
funny.
doable.
Totally doable. I love that. I just love that mindset because it puts us back in the driver's seat, right? And that's where I think people feel like, especially with health and their bodies, somehow they feel they're disconnected from it and that they don't have control. But really, we have way more control than we think, because when this is okay, right? It's all one unit, and when you can focus on improving the small little steps, like you were saying, you get big change.
Yeah, it's like almost fake it till you make it. Maybe your brain doesn't believe it yet, but when you just take a one small step, because your brain says, okay, that's doable. Maybe it's like you said, taking a 5-minute walk. Maybe it is making sure you drink more water throughout the day. Maybe it's, I'm going to eat a vegetable today. I'm going to make sure I get at least one vegetable. It can be a tiny thing. And your brain is like, oh, okay, that's not overwhelming. Okay, I can do that. And then you do it. And then once that becomes automatic, you can add on another small step. And then that way it's not just overwhelming. And, we get this paralysis by overwhelm
Mhm.
when you get like a diet book or a recipe book or some kind of workout plan or a wellness plan, and it has all these long lists of do's and don'ts and eat this, don't eat that. And you've got to work out this many times a week and all that. Our brain just says, oh my gosh, how am I going to go from 0 to 60 in a week? And it isn't
Exactly.
doable. It isn't sustainable. And we can change our brain basically by just taking that first step and just faking it till you make it, because it does start to make changes.
I love that. And really knowing what those changes are, one little thing at a time, like you're saying, because that, it's the whole saying about eating an elephant, right? You got to it's just one little step at a time, Um, and so I just love your whole philosophy. And one thing you said really stuck out in my head that I'd love to have you elaborate on. Well, you said a couple things that were really fascinating, but you talked about a little mantra. Something becomes like a little mantra, because I talk a lot about that. Create a mantra that supports you, right? So, maybe talk a little bit. Give us an example of a little mantra that you think could help people on their journey to weight release.
Yeah, so we don't realize it, but whatever we say to ourselves repeatedly is our mantra. So if every day you look in the mirror and say, ugh, I look terrible, I've really let myself go, I'm, whatever goes on, in your brain, then you're believing that. And thoughts become actions, and actions create your reality. So it starts with the thought and ends up into what you manifest in your life. And when you're trying to change your mantra, I think the thing to think about is make it realistic and believable. So you're not just pasting on a fake smile and going, "I look great. I'm a wonderful weight. I'm so happy with the way I look." Cuz you're not your heart isn't feeling that. Your brain is not believing that. It's calling BS. So that mantra is not going to work. It's not going to sink in. But what you can do is think about, okay, what is the truth of this situation? Okay, I look in the mirror. I don't like how I look. But what if you're trying really hard? What if you have made some positive changes and you say to yourself, I'm not where I want to be yet, but I've already gotten started. So look at me, look what I'm already doing. Or it could be focus on one part that you do like, you know? Focus on if you have a great smile, if you love your hair, if you like your fingernails, like any part of you that you're really happy with. And it doesn't have to be physical. It could be, look what a badass I am at my job. Look how I've killed it at my career, or I'm such a great mom. It's just like focusing on truthful things that you actually do believe. Because, like you said, we always tend to blow up the negative, and then we keep bombarding ourselves with that every day over and over again. So, what if we just focus on some positives? What if we focus on a positive aspect? Or if it's one particular area that you really want to change we want to change our body image. We don't want to be so self-critical. And so if that's the case, make your mantra just incrementally better, not full on, oh my gosh, I look amazing, but wow, I went for a walk yesterday. I'm making progress.
I love
Or
that.
I'm really motivated now and I really want this,
I
you know?
love that. Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're leading them to the feeling, right? So like, a lot of times I'll have my client shift that to like, how are you feeling? Oh, well, I feel so much better. Feeling better when you can get yourself to that higher vibration and you're raising the vibration with whatever that mantra is, and you're focusing on, I want to feel better, or I'm starting to feel better, then everything else seems to fall into place, doesn't it? It's like the feeling piece is the most important. Um, and to tell yourself, I'm feeling a little bit better. Wow, high five me. I just walked for 20 minutes for a month, like every day, like whatever that small little thing is, when you focus on the feeling of that and you're accomplishing, and like you said, you started, because isn't starting the hardest part?
Oh yeah, starting is the hardest part. I took up swimming a while back, several years ago, because I had some knee surgery and I wasn't able to exercise the way I wanted to. And it was, swimming is kind of an ordeal because you have to get on a bathing suit and go to a pool and get all wet, and it's not as quick as stepping outside to take a walk.
Yeah, a lot of prep.
And yeah, and the only pool near me was only open from 5 to 7 a.m. So you had to be out of the pool done by 7 a.m. And I had fairly young kids at the time. So, I mean, just to drag myself out of bed and get myself to that pool, especially in the winter time.
Oh, I
And
bet.
I would sit on the edge of the pool with just my toes in the water, like willing myself to jump in. And I remember one time sitting next to this lady and she was kind of doing the same thing. And she said, jumping in this pool is the hardest thing I do all day. I was like, that's so true. It's just take the jump, just take the jump. Cause once I got in and I started doing my laps and my body started warming up, and it's so meditative, my mind would clear and my energy would be boosted and I would feel so loose and relaxed and just energized by the time I got out of the pool. But you have to jump in.
I love that. And what a great analogy for everything that you do, right? You got to jump in at some point, and it feels scary. And everything you just said, dipping a toe in, maybe that's the 5-minute walk or the eating the one vegetable, but starting with just dipping your toe in and experiencing what that feels like. And look at all the positive endorphins you just got from dipping your toe in. And then you decide to put your whole body in, right? And I feel like that's what happens when we start to be healthy, because when we start to be healthy, our minds like it. We're so proud of ourselves. Like I remember the first time I signed up for yoga, like I felt like my inner child was jumping up and down. She signed up for yoga. Like I knew it was something I always wanted to do, but just never got around to and a girlfriend and I were like, we're going to do this. We bought the pass and we went. And it was celebrating those little things, celebrating the toe dip, celebrating the 5-minute walk, right? Celebrating the one vegetable, because those tiny little things get to, like you said, lead to the 52% change.
Yeah, and every time you do it and when you finish you feel good, that's going to reinforce you wanting to go the next time. And I would just have to tell myself like, this feels good. That this is the hard part. Just take that first step.
And that's what we were
And
talking about, right? That groove. You're
yeah,
making the new
yeah.
groove.
Yeah, and sometimes when I really don't feel motivated to go for a run or to go to the gym or whatever, and I tell my clients this all the time because they're like, I come home from work and I'm tired and I just sit down on my couch and I just don't want to go. I'm like, all right, don't focus on the entire workout. Don't focus on driving to the gym, doing the 30 minutes or the hour or whatever it is. Don't focus on the sweating or whatever is to come.
Mhm.
Just focus on the one step in front of you. Like for me, it's like just focus on getting up and driving to the pool.
Exactly. Putting your suit
And
on.
then, yeah, and then focus on jumping in. So
Mm.
don't think about the whole thing because again, that's that sort of paralysis by overwhelm. You're like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't want to do all this. And I kind of fake myself out sometimes if I don't want to go for a walk or a run, but I know I'll feel better. I just say, all right, all you have to do is get your shoes on and step out the door and start walking. And then if you're tired, if you're just not feeling it, if you're like, ugh, then just turn around and go home. If it's 2 minutes and you're just not feeling it, if it's 10 minutes, whatever. And 99.9% of the time, I end up doing my full 45 minutes or an hour or however long I set out to do it. And I feel amazing because once you get going, your endorphins start going, your blood flow, all your oxygen, you're enjoying the beautiful day, whatever it is. And so sometimes just break it into those tiny steps and just tell yourself, if you do 5 minutes, oh well, turn around and go back. And that never happens. It
I
never
love
happens. You
that.
always want to keep going.
Yeah, I love that. You're kind of faking yourself out because I always say the hardest part is just getting there, right? It's like that's why when I wake, and it's those little tiny things. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I put my workout clothes on. Why? Because I'm going to find a way to get something done, whether it's the 5 minutes on the trampoline or it's the walk. So that way I'm already in that gear because it's early enough. If I have a call, then I have to pressure myself to, I have the certain window that I have to do it within, right? And get everything done. So it's taking that first little step. I love that. Put the sneakers on and, oh, I'll just go for 5 minutes if I'm not feeling it. I love that. I just think that's beautiful. Well, we're going to break real quick, everybody. Don't go anywhere. You want to come back because we're going to have some more amazing discussion with Sarah Haas, women's weight release coach. So hold tight. Hello and welcome back to Look for the Good. I'm so excited that you joined us today. And we're here talking with Sarah Haas. We were in this great conversation about the thoughts that we're thinking to ourselves and these little tiny habits that we can do to help ourselves feel better and move in the direction of the things that we want most in life. And so, welcome back, Sarah. I'd love for you to share a little bit about, I know your personal story because we've talked about it before, and your story is one of, it's just a great overcoming story, right? And I love the way you turned everything around from a situation that can feel so lonely and desperate to be in. Can you share that with the listeners? I think they'd really love it.
Yeah, I would love to. So back in my previous life, I was in graphic design. I wasn't in the health and wellness space. And I did enjoy, exercise and I taught some classes, but I sort of just dabbled in it. And life sort of threw me a curveball. And I have two teenagers right now. But when my son was in kindergarten, he was 6, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So you can just imagine all those moms out there when you find out that your child has a disease, and type 1 is different than type 2. It's not brought on by anything lifestyle related. And also, there's no cure. There's no reversing it. There's no, it's bad or it's good. It just is. Your body doesn't make insulin and you can't live without insulin. And let me tell you, I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified because it can be life threatening if you don't know how to how to take care of your health and your wellness. And so I threw myself into it. I was like all in on, I'm going to make sure. And, the doctors all said, this is very manageable. If you learn this, this, and this, and you just do it, he's going to be fine. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing that. And so I went to every conference. I went to, listen to all kinds of webinars and whatever. I don't know if we had webinars back then, probably not, because this has been about 13 years ago. Or yeah, 12, something like that. Anyway, I started realizing, that we need to make some changes. Like we're healthy, but there's a lot of tweaks that need to happen. We kept sodas in the house and we had always cookies on hand, and I realized, okay, we've got to tweak things and take this to the next level if we want him to be healthy. And a 6-year-old isn't doing this on his own. The whole family, it's going to have to be a team effort. We're all going to have to do this. And so I just started slowly, incrementally making changes. And because a 6-year-old, you're not going to all of a sudden go, oh, guess what? You can't never have a cupcake or a soda or whatever, no more pizza, no more burgers. And that was just too much. And so we started kind of small, and we just eased into it. And I figured out a way of living and eating that was very practical and family friendly and doable and moderate. It was moderation, because that's what it's all about. If you're diabetic, it doesn't mean you can never have whatever. It just means you need to have balance. And so I figured it out for me and my family, and it made a huge difference for everyone. And my son now is thriving and super healthy, and he's a poster child for type 1 diabetes. And I realized that what we were doing, so many other people could be, I looked around and saw other moms and other women struggling to figure this out and to make it work. And, the dieting and all, like I said before, that it just doesn't work. You just end up doing it for a while and then not doing it anymore. And you release some weight and then you put it back on. And, I was like, okay, that's not doable. I've worked something out, and I have got to share this with other people so that they can do the same thing, because I feel great. It's easy. It's just a doable, healthy lifestyle, and it's maintainable. I've maintained it ever since, ever since my son was 6 and he's about to turn 19. So that's when I went back to school and got my certification as an integrative nutrition health coach, and I got certified as a personal trainer. And that's what brought me here. And I love it, because everything that I've done for myself has rippled out tenfold, 100-fold, because I've been able to help hundreds and hundreds of women do the same thing, and not just get themselves healthy, but set a good example and, motivate and encourage others and get their whole families healthy. And it's really like satisfying. It's my life's calling.
I love
So
that.
out of that, trauma, out of that seemingly horrible situation. And of course, I wish it didn't have to happen to my son, if I could take it away and it could be me instead of him. But I think, to your message, you can tell a story of woe is me, woe is him. We're so unfortunate. Why did this happen? We have to do this now. We have to do that. Or you can say, wait a minute, this changed the entire trajectory of my life. And he eats healthier than almost all of his, teenager friends and classmates. And he's fine with it. He's happy. He's happy. And he's setting a good example. And so that was a triumph. That was a huge triumph for our whole family.
Absolutely. And I love that. I love the whole story about how you took a situation, like you said, you could have been telling it, why us, and instead you're like, well, how can I make this work? And I think that's a really great question, because I talk a lot about the questions you ask yourselves. How can I turn this? You turned it into something that's generational, and now you've passed it on to your kids, and they'll pass it on to their kids. And it's become a way of life for your family. And then you were able to branch out and offer it to other people's family, and that will be passed down in their generations as well. So I mean, it's really a touching story, and it's beautiful work that you do. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. So I do have another part of my story to share, if you'll indulge me
Let's
for a minute.
hear it. Let's hear it.
So, in 2019, okay, I'm going strong. I'm in the wellness space. I teach classes, I train people, we're all healthy. We're, doing all the things. And, I got hit with a ton of bricks when I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 47.
Wow.
Yeah, with no family history, no clue, no high risk, nothing. And being a healthy person, you just sort of think, okay, well, I'm healthy, I'm doing the right things. Nothing, none of these things are going to happen to me. That's all for people who don't take care of their health. But that's not true. That's not true. There are hereditary factors for certain diseases, and who knows what else? We don't know why cancer strikes a lot of the time. And so I was faced with a huge, not just mental and emotional challenge, but a physical challenge as well, because I was looking at 20 rounds of chemotherapy, all my hair lost, all that, being a full on cancer patient. I had 25 rounds of radiation, and I had 3 surgeries, including a double mastectomy with reconstruction. So it was about 2 years of treatments that I went through. And I'm so happy to say that I am 100% cancer free. I am, thriving and, feeling amazing. And thank God, I'm so grateful every day for my health and for the fact that I was able to come through it.
That is an amazing story. That's what I mean about you being an overcomer, and it's amazing too, because it seems like, again, you weren't doing the why me story, which is a very, very hard thing not to do. I feel like when you're in that situation, it's hard to not go to that place, and we can all dabble in there, but we can't stay there, right? We have to honor the feelings that we're feeling that come up, and but you took that on, and that's a lot to take on, and that was right around just before the pandemic started. So that was a lot that you were absorbing all at once. Was there any one particular thing that you recall that you were saying to yourself, to get you through there? Was there certain kind of a mantra, that you said to yourself, or something that you repeated to yourself that really helped you get through that situation?
Yeah, so I do think something that you said is important, in that you do have to honor your feelings when these things happen. Of course, day one, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to overcome this and, it's okay. No, I mean, I definitely went to, some dark places, and that is just normal, human, and healthy. It's healthy to have grief and to have anger and just to have anxiety. And I did what I needed to do to work through those feelings. Support from my family and my friends, and professional therapy, and anything. I did lots of guided meditations about health and creating health, and overcoming. I even found some specific ones for cancer and chemotherapy that allow you to accept what is as a gift, because ultimately it is everything happens for you, not to you. And sometimes that is almost impossible to believe when you're in the throes of something. And so I definitely did not have, immediately go into that zone. I had to really go through some stages, and it was off and on throughout the entire process because it was just so brutal, just so brutal. And not knowing, is it going to work? Am I going to be okay? And, faced with your own mortality. But I focused on every day what I was grateful for. I like what you said before about you have to feel the feelings of where you want to be in order to manifest that in your life. You can't just say, I want this. You have to go to a place where you have it and you're feeling how it feels to actually have it. And I can shift into that by starting with gratitude. And I still do this every single day. I'll share a little exercise that I do, but I would have so much gratitude for small things, for my bed, because I have the most wonderful, comfortable bed. And, I bought really nice sheets, and someone got me some as a gift, some silk pillowcases. And when I would, I slept a lot. I slept a lot. And I was like, oh, thank you, God, for this. Such a comfortable bed, such a wonderful place that I can rest. And for my home, thank you that I have this safe, refuge. Even for things like Netflix, thank you that we have streaming and I can, because I'm watching TV like all day long. And if it were, it's showing my age, but when we're growing up, we just have regular TV, those few channels, and whatever's on is on. Sometimes you have to watch the daytime soaps if that's all. But, just finding little places of gratitude, and also just gratitude for all the love that I was receiving, just so much outpouring of love and support from people I hadn't talked to in years, from people I didn't even know online. And I think just getting into that gratitude space really helps take you out of the dark. And that's how that was my first step, my little first step
I love that.
in overcoming and triumphing.
That is so beautiful. Triumphing. I like that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all those little tiny things. And, we're going to break for a quick minute here, but I just love I love everything that you said, because it was so beautiful and empowering. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about what she's doing with gratitude, what Sarah was just explaining to you, because it does seem simple. And I feel like gratitude is one of those things that can quickly rewire your brain. It's scientific fact. There's been a lot of studies on it. But for some reason, people minimize it. They don't understand the power of it because they feel like they are grateful. And so don't go anywhere. We're going to attack that question right there, and we're going to get into gratitude because it is so powerful. And thank you so much for sharing that story from your heart, Sarah. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, and we're talking here today with Sarah Haas. She is just an incredible wealth of information, and she was just sharing her personal story with us. That was so moving. And we're going to talk a little bit about gratitude, because she was explaining how gratitude got us through some of the hardest and darkest times of her life. But we both know as coaches that gratitude is a little misunderstood. It's misunderstood because people feel like, of course, I'm grateful when good things happen, right? But that's not really what practicing gratitude means. So let's talk a little bit about, what does it mean really to practice gratitude? You mentioned that you started from the first thing when you wake up and you start appreciating your pillow in your bed.
Yeah. And I think what you said, it's so true. Like, we think, oh, I do have gratitude when good things happen. But practicing gratitude means going to that every day. It doesn't mean just, oh, I got a raise, I'm grateful, because those things don't happen every day. It's about shifting your mindset out of the negative. And by practicing gratitude regularly, it's scientifically proven to boost your mood and boost your mindset. And so gratitude for me is no matter what is going on in my life, I can always look at what I have that is wonderful and that I am grateful for. And so I've always loved meditation. And I want to say the idea of meditation because I know it works. I know it's 100%, scientifically proven to help you manifest what you want in your life, to bring down your immune system, your nervous system so that you're not in fight or flight, and to improve your health, all these things. But I struggle with it. I have, kind of an anxious brain. I'm kind of a type A, and it's always been hard for me, but I keep I keep working at it. And it's a practice, just like gratitude, it's a practice. And so I came up with a little way that works really well for me. And I think it will help the listeners out there who feel that way, who are like, I know I want to meditate, but I just can't ever seem, just sitting there, trying to like think of nothing doesn't work. And so what I do, it's a 4-minute exercise because to me, I just picked that time randomly because 5 just kind of seemed like a lot. I mean, they'll say do 20 minutes in the morning and 20 at night. Okay, I would love to be someone who does that, but I can't make myself stick to it. So I set 4 minutes as my goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally put my timer on my phone next to me and I set it for 4 minutes. And I take 3 deep breaths where I inhale a really strong breath to the count of 4, and then I hold for the count of 7, and then I exhale to the count of 8. So that immediately gives my brain something to focus on. So I'm not thinking of nothing. I'm counting and I'm watching my breath. And just the breathing, I mean, you can do that anytime. You can do that at work, whatever. But that's the beginning of my 4 minutes. And then I just start listing everything that I'm grateful for. And I feel the love and the gratitude in that moment, and it almost always starts with my kids. That's, of course, the thing in the world in my life that I'm the most grateful for. And then I think, okay, I'm grateful that my son is doing this, this, and this. I'm grateful that my daughter is able to blah, blah, blah. And relationships come to mind. I'm so grateful that I have a great relationship with my mom and, that she's healthy, and I have a great romantic relationship, and it just starts to flow from there. I start thinking about my house. I start thinking about my career, the job, that I love. And it just starts making me feel so happy. And then the third part is I start imagining all the things that I want in the future, but I imagine them as if I already have them. So in my mind, I say, I have a wonderful, comfortable home that I love to come home to. I have close, meaningful relationships with my kids. I have deep, deep friendships with people that I love. I have freedom in my life. I have wonderful, beautiful health. I have a job and a career that I love and that supports me. I have financial abundance. I am traveling. I am doing everything in the world that I want to do, so that I feel those feelings of having everything that, and some of it I have already, some of it are things that I want, but I say, I have this. And then I imagine it in my mind, imagine it and feel the feelings of having it. And I'm telling you, those 4 minutes make it's incredible. It's incredible. And you see those things start to manifest in your life.
That's so powerful. It really is, because you did a lot within those 4 minutes, right? You change the chemistry in your body, and that's the beauty of gratitude. It will rewire your brain, and you're doing it where you are imagining the feelings, and that's how we raise our vibration. Because I love to explain to people, it's like you're the little radio tower, right? And we're constantly sending our vibes out through our thoughts, because our thoughts are electric, right? And that's what most people don't realize. You get what you focus on, whether you want it or not. So if you're always focused on what's wrong, that you wonder why you keep getting more of what's wrong. And you just did that. You're rewiring your brain and you're deliberately sending out a message to the universe that says, hey, I want more of this. I want more freedom. I want more travel. I want more abundance. And you're already stepping into the feeling of what it's going to be like. It's as if you own it now. And that's definitely the secret to manifesting. That's really, really powerful in 4 minutes, right? What you can do in 4 minutes is amazing.
Yeah, and it's important not to say the things that you don't want. So instead of saying,
Right.
I don't ever want to have cancer again, I say, I have perfect health. I am strong. My body is strong. I am healthy and I have tons of energy. Because you can feel how opposite that is, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like law of attraction, which is really what we're talking about here, if you want to give it a label, is always, it never sleeps. So it's always listening. You're always sending that out. And we don't realize that when we say the opposite of what we want, or we're very upset about something, we're actually saying, me, bring more. Give me more of that thing that I can't stand because I'm going to
Right.
stamp my foot on the ground and I'm going to pound my desk and I'm going to be so angry that I don't have it. So that's the tricky thing about the law of attraction, is that it never sleeps. I talk about that in my book. So I love the way you summarize that just so beautifully. And those 4 minutes, just like that 5-minute walk, starts to accumulate over time, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm telling you, those 4 minutes, when my alarm goes off, I'm like, "Wow, that was fast," and sometimes I stop it and because 'cause I'm already in that zone, but it's just so bite-sized, it's so doable. It's such a tiny, small step, and I don't make myself do it first thing in the morning. I don't, put, like, any major, thing about it. I just when I have a minute, sometimes it's at lunch, sometimes it's right before I go to bed, whatever. It's 4 minutes. You could literally do it in your car, like, before you go into your office.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you can take it anywhere. You can do it anywhere. And it doesn't take much. And I feel like that's really a theme that keeps coming up speaking with you today. That's really hitting me as so powerful, is that it doesn't take much. Sometimes we think we've got to have to rework our whole lives and we can't do it. And that feels overwhelming. So we do nothing. Right. Um, and that's what being stuck is. It's when we stop making decisions, we procrastinate everything. But you're giving such great tiny bite-sized things to do, that it just seems so realistic, for everybody. And that's what makes it accessible. That's how, and once you start doing it and you get excited about it, that goodness starts to accumulate more and more. I love that.
Y Yeah, and when I was going through chemotherapy, I used the small step method as well, because it's such a grueling process, and the thought of not just going in, it's a whole day process. You're hooked up to this IV and you're getting this medicine all day long, and I won't go into all of it, but you're gonna feel bad afterwards. You know what's coming because I had 20 rounds. So and so the dread and the fear but I was just like, okay, I've done this once. I can do it again. Look at all the people who have done it. Really, anyone can do this. Anyone can do it. Yes, it sucks, but you just do each day what you need to do to get through it. You put one foot in front of the other. And then the next day, if you're sick, you take medicine. If you are tired, you rest. You just deal with one one thing at a time as it comes.
I
And that
love
goes
that.
back to what you said
Yeah.
about, yeah, it's everything in life is so doable if you take it in small steps.
Absolutely. If we don't overwhelm ourselves, because I feel like our nervous systems are overwhelmed. And you talked about calming your nervous system with this great little 4-minute method. And we're always being bombarded, right? Like we're spending everything's pulling at us, pulling at our energy, pulling at our attention. And as we know, where our attention goes, our energy flows. So being more selective about what you put your attention on, things outside of yourself, because we're constantly being pulled by our phones, our kid, everything's outside of ourselves. But to spend that, even if it's 4 minutes, that's so doable. To spend that 4 minutes on just yourself, it creates something that you can take with you in every aspect of your life. Meditation creates this wave of calm that constantly is with you, and you can bring it. You can become a better mother, a better teacher, a better leader, a better member of your community. Everything just gets better when you give yourself that gift of just those 4 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point because we as women tend to feel guilty and selfish when we're taking self-care. And that, of course, that's not true. But really, when you think about it, when you take the time to fill up your cup, you are so much better. You're more calm, you're more energetic, you're more creative, you're going to be more present. Your relationships are going to be more deep and meaningful because you're going to be plugged in when you're with people instead of just tired and running on fumes and going through the motions. And I think that's just such an important thing to point out. And a lot of times that is why women neglect their health because they're so busy taking care of everyone else. And, if you're a mom, you feel guilty about going to the gym before you go home to your kids. Or, if you have a spouse and, you feel like you have to do this and that just because, whatever it is, you have all these balls that you're juggling. And we tend to put ourselves last on the list. And that is the main reason that I see that women don't get healthy is because they have this long to-do list, they're last on it, and they feel guilty moving themselves up to a priority.
That's really, really insightful and so true because I see that too in my practice, because we're so busy. I even have to catch myself because it is the way that we were brought up to feel about our purposes, right? It goes back to what that little girl was told. And that's the beauty of it is that we can change that because like you said, it's the oxygen mask, right? You got to put it on yourself first before you put it on your child or anybody else. And that's the reason that they tell you to do that because we can be so much better. Like you're talking about, we can show up and be fully present with people when we take care of ourselves. It's transformational. It seems small, even that 4 minutes to yourself, but it will transform your life. Those tiny little things that you do. And this has been
Absolutely.
incredible. Yeah, this has been incredible, Sarah. I can't thank you enough for coming on to the show. Where can we find more about you? What if people want to work with you? How do they find out about you? You probably have a great free gift on your website. Tell them where to get that.
I do. Yes. So my website is sarahhaaswellness.com and it's Sarah with an H and Haas is Haas, two A's. And I'm also on social media under Sarah Haas Wellness and on YouTube. My podcast is called Boss Body. So I talk a lot about all the things we've sort of touched on today and more. And I know, Carrie, you've been on as a guest, which was amazing. And I do have a couple of free giveaways for anybody that wants to go to my website and grab those. I have an ebook called Rev Up Your Midlife Metabolism with lots of tips on
Love
how to
it.
get healthy and get your metabolism going again in midlife. Yes. And I also have a free weight release jumpstart course. So it's an e-course, self-paced. You'll get step by step how to start implementing some of the things we've talked about today and how to take those small steps. And it can really be a great start motivator, to a jump start to kick you into gear.
I love that. That sounds amazing. So go over, everybody, get your copy at sarahhaaswellness.com. And you can always go on my website if you want to find the link for this show at carrierowan.com. You know that. And we'll link her there and you can find out all the information, read her bio again and get to her website and sign up for those free gifts today. And thank you for sharing your heart and your beautiful stories with us today. I know everybody's walking away with a morsel of something, whatever resonated with them most, because it was quite a beautiful chat. So thank you so much, everybody. And remember, It's never too late to live your best story. And come on over to my site if you want to find out where you can get this episode. Go to carrierowan.com and click on the podcast tab up top, and you can find out all the information about Sarah there. And thank you so much for tuning in to Look for the Good, everybody. Take care. Be well.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.